Hi, I'm Anna.
And I'm Ben.
We are AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we are watching Steins Season 1, Episode 5. Last episode, we finally got our hands on an IBN 5100. By unexpected means, somebody left it for us 10 years ago in Ruka's father's house. They left it to Ruka's father and said that in 10 years, someone will come for it. That's wild.
And now that's happened.
Yeah.
We are that someone.
We, in the discussion, narrowed it down if it was like Kyoma in the future. We got to the point in the discussion last episode where you were convincingly trying to convince me that Kurisu was the daughter, potentially, of Kyoma, which now I'm like, God, like, I don't know. He is the one who always just calls her Christina, and she's like, it's Chris, and that's kind of like a father-daughter. I don't know. This shows.
We know from last episode that she definitely has some issues with her father and how deep he got into certain things that I can only assume is probably similar.
Related to time travel, maybe. He maybe embarrassed himself and she doesn't want to make the same mistake. Mm-hmm. I love this show. 4 episodes in, I guess, but I'm ready to start the 5th. I'm excited. You ready?
Yes.
Sweet. Suzuha.
It looked like a spoon. Like there was a picture of a spoon on it.
Uh-oh.
No one's chasing us?
Oh no.
Oh. Did you see when she like started to stand up and she went through the shadow for a second and her face changed? Oh. What?
Dude.
Why her though? Why was Kurisu the focus of that?
Great question. Maybe Suzuha's mission is to protect Kyoma's workings, and maybe Kurisu potentially would fuck it up. I don't know, or could cause a bad route or world line.
Or he adopted Suzuha in the future, and so she doesn't. So she has this rivalry with his real daughter, which is Kurisu.
Oh no.
Daru's shirt.
Number 4.
Oh.
The grand reveal.
Does all the things an Ocarine can.
Interesting. It's just you. Oh my God, Yuri's in here.
You're just feeding into what Daru wants.
It's tragic.
自分で人質になったのです。え？行ってくる。行ってらっしゃい。たはずだが。ウィース。IBN5100 は使えて？その名前を口にするな。
See how she even kind of checked behind her?
Yeah.
手伝おうか？天使がこんなにパソコンに詳しいとはな。
Warrior.
IBN のこと知り合いだったから。
Once knew someone?
本当か？なら連絡を取ってもらいたい。
Can't because it's you.
拒否すればお前はこの世のだって死んじゃったんだもん、その人。何年も前に。すまん。うちの助手が何かしたのか？ううん。おう、鼻で笑ったりしたのだろう。違うよ。彼女は何もしてない。
Hasn't done anything
Yeah.
yet. Or in this.
No anything yet. Damn.
何も知らない。アキセクリスには。どういう意味だ？爆撃。花火の中継だろう。確か今日だからな。花火。
She's always looking for like the corporation too.
聞いたことがある。え？見たことないのか？川の方まで行けば見えるはずだ。ありがとう。教えて。お祭り？花火行きたいの？別にてってる。帰りか。あくまで事実を確かめたいだけ。私やっぱり一度ラボラトリーに戻る。
The voice acting's so good.
じゃあマユシーは帰ります。クリスちゃん？また来てくれるよね。じゃあね。何を聞いているのだ。環境で育ちながらどうしてこう社会性がなくなっちゃったんだ。前には昔から変わった。あなたに言ってるの。
Okay. Mayoha, right? No.
Now he's gonna be getting messages from all sorts of people.
Yeah. Yay!
お目に狂いはなかった。お前は最高だ。白衣。やはり研究機関において前よりも何度言ってもそれが分からないのだが、お前には分か。共に手を突っ込んでないか。
Wonder how many times he tried to convince them to wear lab coats.
You know what? If they do end up being father-daughter, which is crazy, this will be great.
美味しくいただけ。本気か？不満か？当たり前。買い置きのカップ麺ならあるが。カップ麺。カップ麺もらうわ。あるの。醤油と塩だ。塩味。それとフォークも。
Not chopsticks. Because raised in America.
Are they playing a board game?
Mm-hmm.
This is research.
I think this is the same game he was playing with Ruka. The voice acting.
Interesting.
That's it.
The music.
何度言えばわかるのだ、クリスティーナ。今日まと呼ぶように。泣いているのか？泣いてないわよ。男の人に怖い顔でそっとして涙が出たとか。そういうこと全然ないし。助手はなんで泣いているのだ？今本人が全部説明したわけだが。朝になってダメだったら帰るわ。しなくていいのか？母はアメリカ。7年会ってない。
Interesting.
連絡の必要なし。わけか。変なもの付け足していくな。
That's the sound of something working.
Yeah! Cool shot.
1973年とセルの設立は1954年。生まれたのは1975年。セルは IBN5100 に特殊なプログラム。法院にも程がある。しかし可能性はある。なんか全く関係ない当時の素粒子のレポートかなんかで。ああ、JPEG かふざけんな。できねえじゃん。
Destruction of history.
Destruction of history.
Everything you did in America for this moment.
What?
Z プログラムでは高エネルギーの陽子衝突を用いた時空転移実験を転移タイムトラベルではないかプログラム第3段階動物実験プログラム第4段階
Something, what is it?
Human experiments. Fuck.
Oh,
That's
and the
what they're
human
on, yeah.
dead.
Jelly Man.
ここから先をにさらされる可能性がある。天才だろう。
もしかして心配してくれ。
当たり前だ。お前は助手なのだからな。
そりゃどうも。いなって眠れないから。
後悔しないな。
しない。
ま、僕スーパー見たところで足がつくよ。
後本作戦の名称を
Alright.
レギャルンの箱とする。
なんで北欧神明とか言い出しちゃう
の？ダル、作戦開始だ。
14ある。適当に開いてみるを。
God.
2005年1月28日ヒューマンイズデッドミスマッチ。
またそれ
No, what if she finds out her dad was one of the human experiments?
本来の得意点通過に耐えられなかったと思われる。
新聞か？
そうみたいね。日付。
1921年4月3日。
壁面に埋もれるようにして死んでいる男が発見された。男性の死体は全身がブヨブヨの
Like
Jelly Man. That's it.
完全ではないにしろミスマッチ。1972年10月2日。
24日、京都比叡山山麓で遺体発見さる。まだ見る？
いやもう十分だ。飲み物買ってくる。
Dr. Pepper.
相当ショックだった。
どうしてゼリー状になるん？
セレンはカーブラックホールを使ってタイムトラベルの技術を開発している。10キロの質量を10のマイナス19乗メートルのところに押し込んで過去に送るわけ。
I completely understand what that means.
このスポンジを通そうとするようなものよ。だから中身がスカスカになる。
狭いってこと？
そう。すごく狭いところに無理やりねじ込む。
エロすぎだろ、ジョコ。
Oh, yeah, when she puts it that way.
エロすぎ。橋田の変態。
Oh.
かなりの妄想力。
何らかの結論は出さなきゃ。
結論決まっているだろう。
は？
電話レンジカッコ仮があるのだ。先に完璧なタイムマシンを作り出し、世界の支配構造を作り変えるのだ。
Okay, that was Steins Gate, Season 1, Episode 5. What'd you think?
I really liked this episode.
I like every episode of Steins Gate.
I could definitely agree with that, but there was some stuff in this episode that got me really excited.
Like what?
So Suzuha's character mainly is my like current focus of enjoyment. I started thinking as soon as the episode ended, my brain was just like going tunnel vision into focusing on her conversation with Okarine Okabe about how the person that she learned all of this from is dead.
Yeah.
And all I could think after those last minutes of this episode is she connected to one of those people that died in the Jellyman reports? Like, that's where my mind was going. And then I was starting to think, like, oh, did she say how many years it's been since they've been dead? Because we were given, like, dates.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily remember if she gave, like, how many years it's been.
I don't believe she did. The only kind of years it's been information we got this episode was pertaining to Kurisu's father and how long they have not been in contact. 7 years. Yeah, correct. But I like where you're going with the Suzuha thing, because I think trying to get a gauge on something that is dealing with time travel is a little tricky, you know? And my mind wants to go to the most grandiose, like crazy possibilities, like Kurisu being the daughter of Kiyoma somehow.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense, but it's fun.
Or like Suzuha potentially being from the future and she's back here to like try to help, like guide Kiyoma. But I think a more grounded in reality theory or thought might be that Kurisu or Suzuha is somehow connected to CERN and has knowledge of their experiments and, you know, the progress of it going, and maybe even knowledge of what is to come, and that's helping her form her decisions. Maybe she is connected to one of the people who died.
Another possible safe place to go, of like rooted in the reality of this universe and not super grand, would be to possibly assume that she might have that same kind of ability that Okabe does to see the memories of the other world lines, basically. So if she's like in this, so she's on edge, she's like on edge, and she's like, is this going to happen here and when, you know?
Yeah.
So it could be that she can see or has memories of other world lines and other events happening, and is trying to figure out when they're going to happen now, or if they still are going to.
Yeah, I like that. I definitely think that, like, very rarely do I, like, immediately point out, like, a character that we don't have much to go off of, and I'm like, oh my god, I love that character, and then they actually turn into, like, a really cool character that we get more screen time of, you know, like Harold in Arcane. I wish we got more of him. But, no, Suzuha's design's great, and, like, what's really intriguing to me is I know that she's identified herself as a warrior previously, but her position in this episode, like with the shadow and her expression and everything, she was like ready for a fight, which, you know, leads me to believe that wherever or whenever she is from, she has combat experience.
That and her focus, the enemy to her is Kurisu.
Yeah.
Like Okabe, she can have a friendship relationship, maybe even look to them like they remind her of the person that taught her everything that she knows. And she can have somewhat of a relationship with him, but Kurisu, for some reason, is the focus of her suspicion or hatred, or almost like a target.
Yes.
And that, when you have that with the 5th episode, knowing what we know about what happened in the 1st episode with Kurisu getting stabbed.
Yeah.
Like.
So let's, I think that that's a really good place to, like, start getting into right now, because in talking about Suzuha's character, we get, like, a good moment of action and, like, tenseness in the beginning. But I think the real, like, meat and potatoes there is, like, in Kiyoma and her interaction in the, you know, alleyway and then in the market, right? Because we get a decent amount of information. It's like, she obviously, based off of her reaction to Kurisu, and what she says later on in this interaction, gives a lot of, like, context to her comfortability being able to go up to Kiyoma about the IBN 5100 and not have any, like, tenseness or, you know, antagonistic feelings. And she obviously has knowledge of what and what would not work with the IBN 5100 here by asking, like, want some help? I don't believe that this is just knowledge she's gained from loving CRTs. You know, I think that this is, like, her, like, showing us a little bit that she has knowledge of this whole timey-wimey time travel IBN 5100 business.
And she doesn't necessarily act in that moment as an antagonist to Kiyoma.
Correct.
When she walks up to him, there's kind of a relaxed body position, but she even kind of looks over her shoulder as if she's making sure they're safe in their conversation.
Which is like, oh, I want to find that. Because, so there, right? Don't say that name here. It almost is like she's responding to Kiyoma's, like, wariness, like, and he's always on edge, right?
Do you think it's like almost like she trusts him being on edge here, and she's like, oh, okay, let me look, or what?
I think a little bit, and the fact that he is cautious, I don't think she realizes that he's always overly cautious, regardless of if it's legitimate or not.
She might, like, really respect it at the moment or something.
Yeah, but I think that she probably is extremely cautious, but for probably more tangible, legitimate
She probably feels
purposes.
like kindred spirits.
Yeah. But his, like, he said, I didn't expect a part-time warrior to be so knowledgeable about PCs. That, like, confirms for me that she did, in fact, help him pick the right parts here, right? So she is knowledgeable. I once knew someone who understood a lot about IBNs. I'd like you to put me in touch with them. He's dead. No, I apologize for earlier. Did my assistant do something to you? I know, she snorted at you. She didn't know anything, but be wary of her. Or she didn't do anything, but be wary of her. And then it was like, she doesn't know anything yet, was the line, right?
Didn't she say that? She doesn't know anything yet. Yes.
That, like, what knowledge would Kurisu... Like, what would cause Kurisu to do... What knowledge would Kurisu learn that would cause her character to do something crazy? Or to do something that Suzuha would not like to this degree?
Okay, so in this episode, what does Kurisu do that either she would find uncomfortable or she's warned about by another character? If we go to the situation of when they're all peering over Daru's shoulder and reading the Jellyman reports, there is a time where Okabe says to her that she should leave and not learn anymore.
Yeah.
That could be a piece of evidence for something.
You know what that could be?
She's being warned to not learn anymore, and maybe she goes too deep, and then whatever she learned there takes her somewhere.
I bet that would be like a deviating point in like a timeline or a world line.
Where
like if she left then or if she didn't.
Especially with her hatred of the idea of time travel.
Yeah.
With her father, there could totally be a timeline of this character completely rejecting being around Okabe and even hearing more of these reports.
Going with how she is standing, Suzuha, at the beginning of the episode, like, towards Kurisu, my first thought was like, oh my god, in that one world line, was Suzuha the person who did kill Kurisu? Like, in you know, the beginning of the show? Because
maybe in that world line that Okabe was seeing the memories of, she did know something and she did do something.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Or she was being killed right before she did something.
Yeah. Depending on, you know, which world we were being shown there.
I mean, I think that we have the players. I think we have the assassin, Suzuha.
Yeah.
Which is, in some timelines, she might end up working with the lab and being wary of Kurisu. And then in another timeline, Kiyoma Okabe is trying to protect Kurisu from Suzuha.
Yeah.
And then, you know, these are the players.
I agree.
And their dynamics change depending on the world line.
Yeah. I'm wondering what was the knowledge that see, when we saw Kurisu being killed before any of what we're being shown has taken place, right? So why in one world would she have already possessed knowledge that would have had her killed at an earlier point? Would it be dependent on her father and her father's research?
In this current world line, John Titor didn't go to 2000.
Correct.
But we saw glimpses of the one where he did.
Yes.
And so if those papers and those theories had been put out there in the world, in America in 2000, Kurisu would have probably started researching this sooner.
Yeah.
Or maybe even possibly believing it or studying it.
Maybe brought her closer to CERN and the ideas of that, which would lead her to being killed.
Because we know that she was at that building where the professor was having a conference basically putting out his own idea of time travel, which really was a repetition of John Titor's papers in 2000.
Yeah.
And we know that she was there for that.
Yeah.
And that's when she got killed, is because she was there for that professor's talk.
Interesting. Okay, I'm so sorry. I have something in my eye and it's bothering me. It's bothering me the whole episode. I want to figure that out real quick. I'm back. Sorry. I have something in my eye. It's kind of bothering me, but I'll figure it out later. Anyway, back to our train of thought. 10 years, or in 2000, right? John Titor appearing in the year 2000 was seemingly the same timeline that Kurisu was killed in, correct?
We have, what I'm thinking is John Titor, 2000, starts posting and talking about his time travel theory. Then in that same timeline, we're at a professor's talk in 2010 about basically the same theory. And in that timeline, a version of Okabe tried to warn Kurisu about getting stabbed, and then she gets killed.
Yeah.
And then in the current, what I think is the actual current line that we're in, and not just memories of other lines, there was no John Titor until recently on messaging boards with like 0 search results, maybe like 7 search results. We have Suzuha saying that Kurisu doesn't know anything yet and to be wary. And then we have Kurisu starting to learn the time travel theories at the end of this episode.
Yeah. So does that suggest that if John Titor did appear in America in the 2000s, that would lead Kurisu down a path where she would gain knowledge that people like Suzuha would consider dangerous and then have her killed for it or because of it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Suzuha learned all of the things about this PC and probably about time travel from someone else. So I don't think that I could say that she's worried about Kurisu being able to figure out time travel, because it seems like she doesn't think time travel is necessarily a bad thing. I feel like that wouldn't be necessarily safe to assume that Suzuha was against time travel.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because I feel like Suzuha is this, basically I see her as this traveling assassin that's jumping between world lines with the mission to take out Kurisu as soon as she starts to show that she's heading down the path that is bad.
Yeah.
Or that in Suzuha's world would be bad.
And she says be wary of her as well, right?
Yeah.
Like,
which means that she doesn't know anything yet, but whatever she's going to learn, she's learned it before, and then that bad things have happened.
Yes.
So what is it that she learns? Is it what we learn at the very end of this episode? Wouldn't it work that we get this warning and she doesn't know anything yet lines, and then she learns something at the end of the episode?
Yes, I get you, but it's hard, from any of the information that we were told at the end of the episode, it's hard for me to believe that any of that was substantial enough to put her on such a different path, I guess, or to start her on a significant enough path.
Well, maybe the significant path is her realizing that time travel isn't necessarily just a bunch of conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the path that when John Titor posts his theories in 2000 about time travel, she starts looking into those theories because she's a scientist and studying them and realizes they're not just theories. And then in the current timeline, this Kurisu is like, they're just conspiracy theories, but now she's learning that they're real.
Yeah.
So maybe it's once she realizes that there's more to it, and she is a person that wants truth, and that maybe it's once Kurisu goes down the path of looking for truth is when something derails.
Yeah.
To Suzuha.
What year did we say it was? 2010?
Yeah.
It's interesting that, like, the whole idea of the IBN 5100 being left in the year 2000 also aligns with John Titor being in America in 2000. Mm-hmm. I know that it, like, doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it's a weird through line that I'm like, is there anything there, right? Like,
I mean, it's funny because he said in this timeline, in 2000 I never went to America.
Yeah. Which is wild.
But it's like, did you go anywhere in 2000?
Is that it? In one timeline, the IBN 5100 was left for Kurisu instead of Kiyoma or something, you know?
Interesting. Like, maybe they tried it out in one timeline and it led to basically the destruction of history. So now they're trying to plant it for different people in different locations.
Maybe.
You know, in different world lines.
So, do you trust Suzuha? I think that a couple episodes ago, or even last episode, I was still like, what's your real mission? Are you trying to stop Kiyoma? What are you trying to do? But after this episode, I feel like her character is more like understandable or digestible, and I could be totally off base, but it feels like, you know, the whole corn side of her and the happy, you know. I was worried that
Never seen fireworks.
her like being innocent in that regard was also part of her cover or her
like
character.
it was fake.
Yeah, like a fake face. But now I'm like happy because I get the idea that no, like she's just used to whatever world she is from. And in those like little moments, it probably is her true self when she doesn't have that defense mechanism up, you know, defense wall.
When she's so reactive to stimulants that make her like on edge, like suspicious and wary, you see this like quick change with her.
It's like a trauma response.
It's like a trauma response, like at the helicopter.
Yeah.
And her reaction to Kurisu, where she almost just like comes out of the shadow with this harsh reaction. She's very just quick in her movement. And then the saying of like fireworks, you know, like I don't know.
I think that's her playing it off then, right? Like it's like her trying to play off the fact that which
shows that there is like this innocence there, and like, oh shoot, I like broke my like stoic strong character with my suspicion or vulnerability.
Yeah, but when she's like fireworks, it like I've heard of those.
Thinks bombs, you know.
And when she's like saying fireworks, I've heard of those. I don't think that she's like trying to like play it cool or anything. No, I think that she's being genuine. Like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like, I've heard of those and like in my history books, but like, which way are they? I want to see them. Like, it's not like her just trying to get out of this and like trick Kiyoma by any means.
There's something else you could put onto it is almost like a reassurance to herself. Like she immediately thought bombs. And then she's like, oh, fireworks.
Yeah.
Fireworks, not bombs. You know, it's almost similar to something like a calming down of herself too.
Yeah, and I like how that even in this world that is presumably better than her potential dystopian future or a dystopian future or a World War III happening in 2015, we still get signs in the background that say 2010 bummer. I'm like, God.
Sounds like 2015 might be more of the bummer if you're not careful.
But I don't know. It's nice to see Suzuha. Like I feel bad for her, even though I don't know her past. You know what I mean? I'm like, what have you been through to make you so on edge?
What was in her hand? You know, earlier in the episode, it was like this little silver disc, and it almost looked like it had the picture of a spoon on it.
That was before.
That was, I think, before.
That was the first thing we saw.
Yeah, it was the first thing we saw.
I don't
look like it. It's not a spoon.
I don't think it looks like a spoon.
An eye?
It looks like a piece of metal
with
in
a
a
design
shape
on it.
of a clock, potentially.
Oh,
because it a little bit looks like a shorthand and big hand, but regardless, it looks like a it almost looks like a stopwatch even, but it's like a circle with like a point on both ends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it also reminds me of how she gave what's her name, Mayuri, a card, like an ultra rare card or whatever. I'm like, Suzuha has like trinkets, you know,
which also could feed into talking about her having a possible innocence.
Yeah.
And she's carrying out this mission that she has to be on edge, suspicious, wary, dedicated to whatever this mission is, whatever we can guess it is. But there's also this like innocence to her if you think that she holds on to things of sentimental value.
Yeah. It's interesting. So do you think the person that she knows who died is the one who gave her this?
You know, you could go there, or you could go that this represents her mission and isn't necessarily tied to the person. But I did say the word sentimental value.
Yeah.
Which would go along with someone that she loved that has died.
You know what it reminds me of? A sundial. Like in a really weird way. Like it seems like it's pointed at the bottom enough that when she pushes it one way, the shadow's manipulated, right? I wonder, this is like crazy, but like if it's any way to tell like which world you're in or which world line you're in, depending on where the sun and the light is. I don't know.
I like you bringing up the shadows and that she is basically putting a different part of it in the light by pressing it down, which kind of completely is what happens like 5 minutes later when she reacts to Kurisu and there is shadow from the building and where the sun is located, and she starts from being like in a happy face to going up, and once she's in the shadow her face has changed.
Yeah. Like her with shadows seems very like intentional, you know, like how much emphasis is put on them.
It's like almost to symbolize something that's an internal factor.
Yeah.
A characterization of her.
Huh. She's such an interesting character, man. I want to learn all about her. Okay. Next shot is that I have written down is 1433. We get this really cool shot from Daru. I apologize. I always look down at my notes because I'm still struggling with the names 5 episodes in. I'm really bad with names.
Well, I don't know if I should be calling Kiyoma by his mad scientist name or by his nickname or by his real name or
any of them.
Any of the names. Should I be calling Christina or Chris or Mikasa?
Kurisu, I don't know.
Or Kurisu?
So this is the shot I really like of Daru. It's once he like breaks through what I guess is the Z program. But he breaks through it. He says that he got it. And then there's this really cool shot where you pull out from the monitor and we go through Daru's head. Like for the split second that we were in Daru's head, I could see like the dirty thoughts and jokes that he and Kurisu share, apparently.
I mean, I appreciate that his desktop background is where Mayuri works.
Yes. Yeah. That's just being a good friend.
He's just a really good friend.
But that transitions us into him breaking into the CERN server, I guess, with the IBM 5100. And then we get a few dates. We get 1973 was presumably when the Z program was like started launched. Or a thing. And then I could get my dates wrong, so apologies. I think CERN was founded in 1954, which was 19 years prior. And then the IBN was not made until 1975, which is interesting that the Z program was made before the IBN came about.
Right. So how does that fit into all of Okabe's theories, you know, about a special programming language just for this plan?
Like,
so they would have had to invent the Z program in the language and then a few years later invented something to put it on, a PC?
I don't know. It's difficult because I think I would have assumed that the Z program was made like with the IBM 5100 or something. But the fact but the fact that the IBN's the one that comes after makes me like think, okay, was the technology and programming language or something else that I don't understand yet not able to be made until after the Z program was started? Like we didn't have that knowledge yet. Or while the 5100 was being manufactured, CERN was able to like put in like a back end to it to coincide with their technology, so that even though to everybody else in the world they're going forward with this like regular
retro
plan,
PC.
They're going like they also have like a back end to do other, you know.
Yeah, because to Kurisu, she's like, yeah, right, there's gonna be conspiracy theories on here. It's probably just physics reports.
And I love that Dar is just like a picture. Screw you. I can't Control C, Control V it. Yeah. And
she's surprised it's not in French. Yeah,
it's in English, which is very interesting. And the wordage, obviously, we have to be like careful with subtitles because we don't know who, you know, if it's a 1-for-1 translation. But the subtitles are so interesting. Time control and its destruction of history. I understand that time control can just be time travel, but time control in itself is very specific. Like controlling time and being able to time travel could be considered the same, but one has more one has more implications for how much power you have over it.
What does Kiyoma Okabe always say? That he wants to defeat the ruling structure.
Yeah,
You
the
know, and when you
corporation.
think of time control, you think of the people that have control over basically time and space.
Yeah.
And how they would then choose, I guess, to destroy history in order maybe to build a place where they look better or protects them.
Well, that's an interesting point, because you're suggesting an intent to destroy history, where my first thought goes to, if somebody had control of time and time travel at their own disposal, it would bring forth the destruction of history
Right, that's
without
a way to look at it
any
too.
intent, right? Like, if you continuously try to change things, and like where did you start anymore?
Yeah, don't
you know?
they, whenever I've seen a movie that has time travel, they always say to the person before they time travel, don't talk to your past self.
It's like butterfly
you know?
effect.
Yeah.
Right, but like, I don't know. It's interesting because this is the Z program, the whole idea of time control and its destruction of history. Where did they get this knowledge? Like, is this are you like predicting something that's yet to come? Was there a John Titor in that time in 1973 when the Z program was made? Were they privy to information that was going to happen in the future?
John Titor in this timeline did say 2000 isn't, he didn't go in 2000.
That's true.
So is it possible that in order to, in this timeline in 2000 when John Titor time traveled, things ended up turning into dystopia, and that probably was the, like, 2015 World War. I don't know. Kurisu gets stabbed. Bad stuff. So maybe if we go earlier and insert ourselves into CERN and maybe, like, protect the knowledge by putting it into this retro PC that only Kiyoma's gonna find through the temple.
Yeah.
We've now protected this power.
So time control and its destruction of history. And then immediately after, this in turn, so time control and its destruction of history, this in turn enables a utopia heading from the past to the future. The realization of this will be CERN's reason for existence in the 21st century. That's a lot.
Yeah.
There's
a way that's they're conversing right now that I think I finally figured out why when I initially watched it I felt kind of weird. Of like, oh wait, what? You know, we're jumping in a bunch of like thoughts, we're reacting to each other, we're reading, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's because what I literally just said, all three of them are reading this at the same time.
Yeah.
So they're both digesting this. It's almost like we're being given real dialogue of what would happen if three people were reading the same document. We're not going to hear everything that they read.
Yeah.
And they're going to be talking about other things at the same time. But then, so to me, I was like, wait, well, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about Kurisu speaking English, but now we're back to the utopia heading from the... There was this jumpiness to it that when I first watched it, kind of, I was like...
What, them going from reading it on the screen to like having a little conversation in between them? Mm.
But then now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, that kind of is realistic to three people both reading something from a screen.
Well, yeah.
They don't need to necessarily talk about everything they read because they're all reading it.
Yeah. But I'm more curious on if Kurisu here is saying that, like, is the implication that the knowledge of time control and its destruction of history and the knowledge of that is what enables a utopia heading from the past to the future? Or is time control and its destruction of history enabling a utopia heading from the past to the future? You know what I mean? Like,
is the awareness of time travel and what it would do leading
because it says the
utopia?
realization of this,
or would be the realization in using it lead to the utopia?
I at one point in this show, I hope we get to like be a fly on the wall for Inside of CERN and the Z program, because like, God, I would like to see how they obtain this knowledge or the realization, you know? Like, I know that CERN is ahead of where we are and our group is currently, and we're like catching up to them and trying to beat them to it. But like, that's a big realization that you learn. Unless somebody's going to be there to tell you. How are you so sure, you know?
Don't you feel like it would have to be that someone came from the future and gave it or planted it for CERN to be so miles ahead so early?
Yeah.
They were founded in like 1954. You know, to have all of this progress in terms of like starting their research and even starting later what we hear about the Jellyman reports.
Yeah.
You know, it feels to me like someone from the future would have had to go back and give and or plant information in CERN or create CERN or something like that.
Yeah.
That they couldn't have just invented this on their own without any knowledge of the future and the capabilities of time travel.
Where have we heard the term dystopia in this show before? Was it in episode 3 from John Titor? In regards to 2015 bringing World War III?
I think so.
Because, like...
I remember talking about it. I remember us talking about that word.
And this results in a dystopia? Don't believe what CERN says they've already created. What's a dystopia? The easiest to describe dystopia is a revival of communism and the world's reversion to 18th century living standards. God, it's so interesting that in such a potential technological world, if one person or one organization like CERN is able to hold all of or most of technology, then the rest of the world would be deprived of it to a place where they'd be reverting to living in 18th century.
Is that what we're getting? Is that CERN, if CERN is allowed in this world line that we're currently in, if CERN is not stopped, and if CERN by year 234 is still the inventors of the time travel and the people that possess planetary rule, basically, of science and technology, that will lead to dystopia. And therefore, this group of people, it is their mission, maybe even Suzuha's mission, to ensure that dystopia does not come to pass in this world line.
It's still so interesting. I know we don't know these characters too well, but like, to imagine Kurisu doing something, or intentionally or not, that would affect the world in such a way.
It's such a negative way. As like almost like an antagonist, possibly. Yeah.
Do you, like, I wonder if at all she will have connections to CERN in any regard.
Or is it what I was thinking, that maybe she doesn't know anything yet, that maybe where Suzuha had her suspicion was from a line where Kurisu was a part of CERN or joined CERN in America.
Yeah.
You know, didn't come to Japan, or maybe John Titor had gone to America 2000.
Maybe her dad didn't leave.
Maybe her dad is a part of CERN. Maybe that's the reason to be suspicious of Kurisu, is because of her father and her family ties and not necessarily her. And what if her father called her out of the blue and was like, I need your help with something, and she decides to make a choice to help him.
Yeah.
And that's what Suzuha is worried about. That she could get a call from her father.
Maybe.
You know, maybe it's not what she's learning here, which is what I thought it might be, that maybe since she loves the truth so much, that maybe it was bad for her to want the truth out of this and to actually believe it as not just conspiracy theories. But I think you could also, I mean, we've been given her father as an idea, and similarities between her father and Kiyoma, and the possibility of mad scientist nature.
Yeah.
So I could also think with this episode, we were told, oh, I haven't talked to my father in 7 years.
Yeah.
Could that be a way to have her possibly change for the worse, is a conversation with her father?
I'm trying to figure out, like... Okay, so we get, like, the reports of these people, which is honestly pretty interesting, because, like, the failed reports of people and what happened to them, right? Why the test subjects weren't good. We get some subtitles, but on the actual paper where we're able to read it, there's some interesting stuff, like...
Like orphan?
Yeah, but marital status. He's married, right? You have a picture of him, which I presume to be his family, and family names and ages, right? Mm-hmm. So when it says birth, a person composition, birth, orphan, is the way of one's birth important? Like...
Or are they purposefully picking
orphan
subjects that parents had done this prior and that were orphaned from it? Because maybe you have to have a certain disposition.
Well, why? Like, it's interesting that it's at, like, in big,
and it's
bold
in big
letters.
bold. You're so
Yeah.
right that there's an intention that's called
Because
to it.
what
It's
you'd
like,
think, I would think, okay, he's married and has a family. Why would his birth matter in any regard?
Mhm.
But hopefully we get a couple more reports on screen.
You could kind of read below that cause of death, and then there was like writing of what the cause of death was underneath in red, and all I could make out of it was CERN because it was capitalized.
Yeah. But I don't think we get any other, like, actual screen time other than Alpaca Man.
No, we only see the kind
Subject
of
on the Hill, British.
images of the jelly people
Yeah.
after that. So
Interesting.
crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't think about that, of like that the gel banana was gonna actually come back as like that's what happens to the people
Yeah.
that time travel.
Like, there are terms that, they could be based in reality for all I know, but, like, the Kerr black hole, right? Like,
It feels real.
yeah.
I don't know if it's real, but it feels real.
Like, it is... Are we getting that Kurisu is able to or think of a thing that CERN hasn't, and that is... Maybe that's the thing, right? Maybe you were right, that Suzuha, the knowledge that Suzuha was alluding to was the Kerr black hole, and that is the one thing where Kurisu would be like, nah, it's not, like, that black hole wouldn't work. You're trying to fit something too big into something too small. This isn't how you do it. You do it a different way. And that different suggestion or that different black hole idea or ways of getting through it would be the lead to her having a important decision or knowledge. I don't know.
And then it could lend to the whole theory that in one episode, Suzuha brings up she doesn't know anything yet, and by the end of the episode, we see Kurisu get information and learn something. And that has to be purposeful to have those two things in the same episode. I do like where you're going with the black hole and her kind of being the one that could figure it out, because I feel like either within the first episode or the episode where we see her again and we kind of interrupt her talk, I feel like she was talking about black holes or something on either of those occasions. I almost just kind of remember it. Could be a Mandela effect. I don't know. But I feel like I've heard her talk about black holes before.
There was a line we got early on that I wish that I could have written down the timestamp of, but it was in regards to the admiration of Kiyoma, and there was like a weird pause where Kurisu was like, I don't admire him. And like that, like...
Oh yeah, they were in the hallway after they had just walked in from carrying the computer.
Yeah. And whatever it was, though, it's like that paired with the knowledge that her dad left 7 years ago, I think that our fun little theories completely out the window now, unless my only like lifeline to the idea that Kiyoma could somehow be the father of Kurisu is if the orphan idea is detrimental and important, and in that being the case, Kiyoma somehow orphaned Kurisu and was raised by a family that wasn't hers, but that's just really reaching.
I think
so
at the
I think
moment
it's out the window.
I think that was the theory that I was really for funds running with last episode, and then I really liked it when at the beginning of this episode with Suzuha being kind of, I was like, oh, is she jealous of Kurisu because she's like the adopted daughter later on?
Yeah.
And yeah, that out the window. I agree. I think I would be more inclined, if I was going to theorize about who Kurisu's father was, I'd be more inclined to go, maybe he actually has a tie to CERN. He doesn't have to have a tie to CERN, but he could. And that would be the only theory at the moment with her father that I feel like could possibly pan out and have a reason plot-wise.
Yeah. My last thing is, what do you think of Mayuri saying like that she's a hostage? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, she's a very spirited, very fun character. I love when she's on the screen because I love how she talks. I love that she refers to herself in like third person, like with a nickname.
Yeah.
And when she's like, I became a hostage myself.
Is that like her, like since she's known Kiyoma so long, is like she Is that like her being the same type of energy and playing into the whole like RP of the, you know, of the world, like the role play of like...
She's been with him so long that maybe she has that kind of... You know, when you're with someone a lot, you end up taking on some of their mannerisms or their ways of speaking. So it could be her playing along a little bit and creating her own little fantasy within their relationship.
I don't know, man. I'm enjoying the show. I just want to watch more at this point.
I do too.
Favorite character?
Suzuha. Actually, I think she was yours when we asked this last episode.
Yeah.
And I think I was still saying Mayuri was mine.
Yeah.
But I think at the moment, Suzuha for me.
Suzuha's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Jellyman's pretty cool too. Can't forget about Jellyman.
Can't forget about Jellyman.
The added context and understanding of like men and people becoming jelly doesn't damper Jellyman's.
It doesn't?
No.
At all?
Yeah.
See, I just thought it was funny at first, and now I'm like, oh.
No, if I'm completely honest, I feel like whoever Jellyman is, if it's actually one person and not just like a title for the people writing these reports, they are some sick, sadistic scientist person who has named themselves or given themselves a moniker of the like resulting, you know,
human deaths and human experiments
and animals.
Can you imagine doing that? Being like, oh, what do I name myself in my reports of all these people that were turned to jelly?
Here's a question: if they've moved from animal to experiments to human, did they succeed at all with animals?
Interesting, because the animals could have been smaller, like rats, and they could have fit in the hole.
Maybe that's a good.
So maybe they thought it would work when they first did it because the rat was. Well, how do you know a rat was actually able to travel back in time?
How do you know it's a rat, not an ant?
Well, how do you know the ant was... Are they strapping cameras to them?
That'd be cool.
Because I think that's the only way. It's not like the rat, you're going to send the rat in with a mission that's like, hey, you got to do this so that we know that you made it to the past. And then we'll see that you planted a flag on the top of this mountain and we'll know that you made it.
Yeah.
The rat's not going to do that.
Do you want to know why Suzuha is my favorite character?
Okay.
In TV shows, we don't get characters like moral beliefs stated in like a flat out way very early on, and if we do, it's because they're going to develop later on in the story. But for Suzuha, one of the biggest debates I've ever heard is if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you? She is let her decision be known to us. She is not going to kill Kurisu or harm her because she hasn't learned information yet.
Yeah, that's what I wrote. Like, Suzuha, traveling assassin, mission to take out Kurisu only if she knows something.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's where she lies.
I like it. It's I can commend it that you would only strike when she shows that she's starting to, I guess, go down the wrong path.
I guess, but it also depends on what Kurisu does, right?
Yeah.
Like if Kurisu ends up doing the worst thing this world has ever seen, then it might be harder to commend, you know?
But what I think that it brings up is this idea that people could make a decision and it could totally change the world line.
Yeah.
And so it's this there's this awareness here of this possible time traveling assassin that Kurisu could decide on her own in this world line to not do something.
Yeah.
And that it can't be until the actual moment before that you stop her, because she could still be innocent up until that moment.
But we're also kind of dealing with a multiverse in the sense of world lines too. So is time travel even philosophically like existing if it's a multiverse? You know what I mean? Because then it's just inner multiversal travel and not okay. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.